Welcome to Dan's Talks. My guest today is John Catsimatidis, one of the most prominent leaders in the city of New York, who also happens to have a house for maybe 30 years in Quogue out here. And I've known him a long time, and he has had an enormous amount of success in various fields. And I'll name a few, and then we'll go on to some specifics of these. Owns a supermarket chain. He expanded that. He went into the oil distribution business, having started, I think, with a gas station somewhere, then turned into storage and stuff. Ran for the mayor of the city of New York twice. Bought WABC, one of the most prominent radio stations in the city of New York. And this is about as much as any four people could do in one lifetime. That's about the way I look at it anyway. And now I find out just moments before this podcast that you're a best-selling author. You're on the bestsellers list from I guess a autobiography called "How Far Do You Want to Go?" Which
we're in the bestsellers listed here.
Yeah, there it is.
Right
like
there.
A box of cereal held up like a real
box of cereal. and you could buy it on Barnes and Noble, you could buy it on Amazon, or you could buy it at WABCradio.com and you get an autographed copy. And if you get an autographed copy and you want to resell it on eBay, you can get twice the money you pay for it.
That's sharing the wealth is one way to look at it.
Thank you, Dan. Dan, I always enjoy working with
an official billionaire and more. And there's no stopping you as far as I can tell, John.
Dan, I always enjoyed working with you. We worked together through our mutual friend, Jerry Finkelstein.
Yes.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And Jerry, I love Jerry. He was like a second father to me. I learned so many things from Jerry about politics. I'm not sure. I think I talk about Jerry in my book, that he was like a second father. And we used to get together at the Yale Club, along with all the federal judges and all the lawyers and everything, the Yale Club, and we would smoke cigars on the Thursday night. And on a Thursday night, I never smoked. I puffed on a cigar. and we started about 5 o'clock. And by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, if we ran out of things to talk about, we started to talk about the things at 5 o'clock and do a replay.
I see. The book, I think, from what I'm told, I haven't read it yet, is recounts your beginnings, where you found your dad was working as a waiter and like 7 days a week, and you picked up.
My father had to work 7 days a week because he worked at Longchamp's restaurants on 42nd Street and Lexington Avenue 5 days a week as a busboy because he didn't speak English well. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, because I'm 28% Italian, so my father had to be partly Italian too. So my father would go to the Italian restaurants in Long Island City, Astoria, and work as a waiter and get paid more money.
Well, tell me a little bit how you started with Gristedes. How did that come about? And then we'll go on to be running for mayor and a few other things.
Well, what happened is I was going to originally I wanted to go to West Point. I had the congressional nomination for West Point in 1966, and my mother cried. My father yelled. I was an only child, so I ended up going to NYU Uptown campus. So, while I was going to NYU, I had to work part-time to earn a few dollars to put gasoline in the car, even though gasoline was only 25 cents a gallon.
I remember it well, yes.
And but I worked part-time as a grocery person in a store, and I ended up in my senior year buying a grocery store from my guy I considered my big brother, Tony. And I made that place a success in 6 months. And I was making 4 times what an engineer would make. So I was 8 credits short. I never graduated. I stayed in the grocery business, and I had Jerry Finkelstein as a mentor.
Yep, he can't
And,
do better than that.
and who could do better than that? And I always enjoyed you being together with Jerry, and he started all the newspapers, the Queens edition and the Manhattan editions, and then he made a deal with Jerry. And
yes, I did. And I've never, in fact, I've been very lucky in all of these and this whole time. But when did you decide you wanted to run for mayor? That's a big step.
Well, when Blumberg was term limited at 8 years in 2009, I decided I was going to run for mayor. And then Blumberg said, I'm going to run for a 3rd term.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight Blumberg. I said, you want to run for a 3rd term? Go ahead and do it. I'll run in 2013. And that was the first time. The second time I ran in 2013. And, I was a Bill Clinton Democrat all my life. My daughter married a Republican, Ed Cox's son. Chris Cox was a lovely kid. And to have peace at the Thanksgiving Day table, I converted to being a Republican too. And then when I ran for mayor in 2013, I ran as a Republican liberal. Because why? Bob Morgenthau taught me how to take care of the kids of the inner city. And I worked with Bob Morgenthau at the Police Athletic League. And I wanted
another mentor.
Another mentor.
Yeah.
And so taking care, running as a Republican, which is financially a stable individuals, but also knowing that you have a heart and I have a heart. We love to help people in our cities and our country. So I ran as a Republican liberal, and people loved it. And the fact is, I lost the Republican primary. I was beat by not Joe Loda. Joe Loda, I like Joe. He was a decent guy. But I was actually beat by Rudy Giuliani because Rudy was supporting Joe Loda. So, Hasner tried to convince me I should stay on the liberal line. And if I would have stood on the liberal line, it would have been Loda on the Republican, me on the liberal, and de Blasio on the Democratic.
Yeah.
And I bet you, I was good friends with Bill Clinton. If he would have endorsed me, you never know what would have happened. We could have saved New York and never had de Blasio, who I like, is a nice guy, but I don't think he did a great job.
Yes, a lot of people would certainly agree with that. Then you went and bought this radio station.
Well, after I lost for mayor, Jerry Crowley comes to me. He was at WOR, and then he was at 970 AM and says, John, people loved you. Why don't you have a 1-hour show? Because people would love to hear you.
Yeah.
And he convinced me, Jerry Crowley convinced me to have that 1-hour show. Then I went to 2 hours. Then I went to 3 hours. Then I went to 4 hours. Then Jerry Crowley, who was at WOR at the time, they had Mike Bloomberg on every Friday with John Gambling.
Yep.
Remember Rambling for Gambling?
Sure.
And then they sold WOR. I started yelling and screaming at Jerry Crowley. I said, why did you sell it? Mike Bloomberg would have bought it, or I would have bought it.
Aha.
So we kept going and going. It was $30 million that the WOR was sold for, and I was yelling and screaming. So when Cumulus wanted to sell WABC for $12.5 million,
oh my God.
Guess what? I wrote a check sight unseen.
Sure.
And we took WABC because I grew up with WABC. I grew up with Cousin Brucey.
Sure.
I brought Cousin Brucey back to WABC. He's older than us. And I love Cousin Brucey, and he has beautiful music. and I took WABC from number 28 to the top 2 or 3 in the tri-state area, and we are now on worldwide and in 50 states.
And now how long have you been working on this book? How far do you want to go?
I started to work on it.
Lessons for the common sense billionaire.
Yes, I started to work on it with a writer. His name is Ellis Hennigan. Good guy. He worked for WOR at one time. He worked for Newsday at one time, and he helped me write the book. And I started before the pandemic, before the COVID, and I finished after COVID. And I wanted to write it down so my kids knew where they came from. I wanted to write it down because it's just before I got Alzheimer's, I said, maybe write it down to make sure I don't get Alzheimer's and can't write it.
If anybody should be writing an autobiography, I can't imagine anyone who has accomplished as much as you. I've often thought you must have the golden touch. It's like things
Either
just
that, or maybe my mother from up above is watching over me. I remember no matter how many times I got in trouble, I felt like my mother was watching over me. She passed away in April 1977. And and business was tough those days in 1977. Our wholesaler went bankrupt. The next thing I knew, a week after she passed away, I got $1 million check in the mail from the IRS that we really needed to stay in business. And I looked up to the sky and say, thank you, Mom.
there you go.
I never even knew that we were owed that $1 million.
I see. Well, that can happen. I once went on a trip for
Maybe it was a mistake.
I
Who
don't know.
knows?
I don't know. I once went on a trip. I used to travel all over the world, and I write while I was away, and I got challenged by the IRS one year. I put the airline on my tax deductions, and when it got done, they did what they did for me. They said, all of this is tax deductible, all these trips, because you're writing for your newspaper on them. I was amazed at that. And tell me, let's talk.
At one point, Jerry Finkelstein had all the newspapers. At one time, he had the legal paper.
Yes, was New York Law Journal, I think it was.
And then he started to buy it.
It was before that. It was
the newspapers in New York.
Yes, he did before, but he started out with some kind of union newspaper, as I recall, in the early 40s.
The Chief.
Yeah, that was it.
And then he said to me, John, you got to make an investment. You got to come in with us. And at that point, we got to work together at one point, and that was those were good days. You know why? I love working with Jerry. I love working with you, and I'm out in the Hamptons for 40 years now, maybe more. But I'm a weekend warrior.
Where are you still? You're still in the same house, aren't you?
I still have the same house from 40 years ago. My son has taken it over and has there's 6 bedrooms, a tennis court, and a swimming pool. So my son at the age of 30, he loves it. And I always wanted a beach house. So when the one came up that I really liked, me and Margot went over on a Saturday morning. We signed the contract on Monday for the asking price. I never did that in my life. Pay asking price for anything.
What was the attraction of being in the Hamptons versus some other place you might have gone, Jersey Shore or Catskills, wherever? Why did you come here?
Well, I ended up having a lot of friends out there.
Yeah.
And to me, I love friends. I love people. I can't be by myself. If I have to go by myself for dinner, I have a heart attack almost. I mean, I need people to talk to. I enjoy people. I love people.
Yeah, and they're all out here. A lot of them are. And
yes.
I have the same problem. I always feel if I'm in a restaurant and eating by myself, people are looking at me like, poor guy or something.
Doesn't have any friends.
Right. That was something. So what is your favorite things to do when you come out here besides just have everybody over? And
Well, you got to have dinner on a Saturday night. You have to, uh, I go to church on Sunday morning, light a candle, and pray for all of us, and then I go to lunch after church.
yeah,
I love to be in the pool on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. Dinner Saturday night. Sunday night dinner, not as much unless I have to. We try to do all the charities and get to see a lot of friends that we don't see normally. And the money doesn't mean anything. It just we just like to help people and getting to know people.
I should tell everyone that you are a big help to the Bridgehampton Child Care Center, which I'm on the board of, which helps disadvantaged children by actually restoring a building on the property some years ago, and that was quite a thing. And we've now grown exponentially, and I'm still on that board. And I always, in fact, that building is called Margot's Cottage, as you know.
Yes, Margot is here with me, and and
Ah,
and, and Margot, say
hi,
hello.
Margot.
Yeah,
Oh, so good to
and
see you.
Margot's Cottage. She loved that place. She loved what you were doing with children, and I want to, thank you from my bottom of my heart for getting us.
We recently completed and are now occupying a 7,000 square foot main building on that property. And Margot's Cottage anchors the far end of the campus. It has I guess a green there, and it's 6 acres, and it's just a wonderful place. And I always thanked you for that. I still
And
do.
when we come out there this fall, we're going to come out there. I love my son, even though he's 30 years old, and my daughter. They love to go pumpkin picking, and they love to go out there. So I'll be out there this fall. A couple of weekends. We'll stop by and see the cottage too.
All right, and thank you for your time and being on this podcast. And I love you, John, and Margot too. And we'll talk soon. Bye bye.
I look forward to it. God bless you, and God bless America. And you know why I go to church on Sunday mornings? I
Well,
light a candle because we need God's help right now.
I sure think so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.